At that time, he couldn't have possibly imagined the future that awaited him, a future filled with conflict and extraordinary beings. He had no inkling that he would one day find himself fighting alongside such fantastical allies, a destiny far removed from his mundane life. Kurozuka Yuuma reflected on his aimless university life. He was just going through the motions, even in his university classes. Satisfied with simply passing time, he internally scoffed at the normies around him. As he pondered a visit to the bookstore, a mysterious feather caught his eye. The feather then settled softly upon his head. Until that fateful day, his life continued its unremarkable course, until a strange light appeared. He looked down in bewildered surprise as the ground beneath him lit up. Suddenly he was plummeting into the unknown, a silent plea escaping him. A desperate plea echoed, asking for salvation. A mysterious voice called for the chosen ones to rise and save this world. Yuuma awoke on a patterned floor, wondering where he was and who the others around him were. A regal figure, King Burke van Gardgul, silenced the confused murmurs and introduced himself. The king declared he would get straight to the point, an announcement that made one of the summoned realize this was an isekai opening. He proclaimed that they were chosen to become heroes, a revelation that thrilled some of the summoned. The task presented was to aid in subjugating the demon lord and his army, a request Yuuma immediately rejected. For Kurozuka Yuuma, a university first year who detested scary things, this was his worst nightmare. However, Akinishi Keita, showing strong will, demanded to know what reward they would receive for their assistance. Yuuma was aghast at Keita's audacity in speaking to a king in such a manner. The representative assured them of appropriate treatment, rewards, and instruction in ancient arts to acquire divine blessings. Keita questioned the value of these blessings, stating he would depart if they proved worthless, prompting the representative to lead him forward. Yuuma wished Keita wouldn't advance the conversation so quickly, as he wanted to voice his own concerns. The imposing figures of the king and his guard loomed. Resigned, Yuuma acknowledged that this was how his story as a scaredy cat began. Thus, Yuma's new life, his story, commenced. They arrived at a grand altar, the site where the sacred rituals would be performed. Yuuma could only marvel at the fantastical scene before him. A beautiful woman, Grand Priest Edna Hance, introduced herself and welcomed the summoned heroes. Edna Hance then declared that the ritual to bestow God's blessings upon them would begin, asking them to approach individually. Akinishi Keita eagerly stepped forward to be the first. He was instructed to enter the magic circle. The god of flame bestowed upon Keita the flames of hell, and Edna Hance offered her congratulations. The ritual proceeded normally, with each individual receiving their own blessing. Another received the power of ice from the Shenron of memories. As his turn approached, Yuuma fervently wished for a blessing that would shield him from any danger. When the last person was called, Yuuma realized with a jolt that it was him. His nervousness was palpable as he walked towards the altar, his heart threatening to leap from his chest, while others noted his awkward gait. One of the onlookers observed that he had dropped a feather. Edna Hance announced that the god of healing had granted Yuuma the ability to revive, a power Yuuma immediately associated with having to take hits. An official lauded their impressive blessings as expected of heroes, and invited them to enjoy a lavish meal in gratitude. The thought of healing meant potential combat, which filled Yuuma with anxiety due to his aversion to pain. The official encouraged them to freely enjoy the provided feast. Yet the appealing spread, particularly the meat which he liked, made Yuuma consider trying his best in this world. While eating, Akinishi Keita, a second-year high schooler with the blessing of Hellfire, asked Yuuma for his name. Keita then commented that Yuuma's blessing didn't sound particularly useful in a fight, much to Yuuma's irritation. Araki Takuya, a university first year with the blessing of ice, countered that Yuuma's ability balanced the numerous frontline fighters. Araki Katomi, a high school third year with the blessing of nature, added that she was glad for a back row healer and would rely on him, solidifying Yuuma's feeling of being treated as a non-combatant. Yuuma felt somewhat bad about not having to fight, though he was also glad. He decided to practice his healing magic extensively, asserting that he too had a role in the back row. Later, Edna Hance informed the official that all preparations were complete and they could proceed the next day. The official instructed Edna to be careful when dealing with Yuuma, emphasizing his precious nature. Edna acknowledged the instruction. The following morning, the official woke Yuuma. The official stated he had something to discuss, and Yuuma, sensing something amiss, asked if there was a problem. The official explained their ongoing battle against the demon lord and their insufficient supply of medicine. He then requested Yuuma's help to heal their injured, given his power to revive. Yuuma reluctantly agreed to see what he could do. Yuuma was surprised to be deployed so soon. The official handed him a change of clothes, explaining that he would get dirty. Yuma noted that the garments resembled hospital clothes. The atmosphere turned ominous as the official gestured for him to take a seat in a dimly lit area. A bad feeling crept over Yuma as he questioned what he was supposed to do with the injured. Suddenly, he was grabbed. The official, now with a chilling grin, declared their intention to use Yuma's flesh and blood. Yuma was utterly confused by this statement. Before he could comprehend, he found himself forcibly restrained. Bound and terrified, Yuma questioned what the official meant, his eyes darting between the restraints and a nearby knife. The sight of a syringe only deepened his confusion and horror. He simply didn't understand. Overwhelmed by fear, Yuma trembled. The official urged him to calm down, reminding him of his blessing of immortality. He elaborated that Yuma would never perish from any wound or poison, as others were subjected to horrific procedures nearby. This meant, the official explained, that Yuma's body possessed the means to deal with any injury inflicted upon it. In a desperate attempt to negotiate, Yuma suggested they could start by taking his blood, pleading that they didn't need to rush things. However, his words were met with a brutal stabbing, making him wonder if they were wrong about his invulnerability. As Yuma shrieked in pain, the official coolly inquired if he was truly hurt or just scared. The official then patronizingly told Yuma-san to calm down, reminding him that he shouldn't die. The torment continued relentlessly. The official coldly reminded Yuma that he had told him he would not die. Immediately after, Yuma's arm was violently severed. Yuma stared in shocked disbelief at his severed limb. Then, to his utter astonishment and horror, the wound began to grotesquely regenerate. Yuma was stunned as his arm miraculously grew back. An attendant observed the severed arm on the floor, remarking on how amazing the regeneration was. The official observed the regrown arm, noting that this was beyond what she had anticipated, marking Yuma's second day in this other world. With a terrifying grin, the official announced their intention to move on to drugs, solidifying Yuma's realization that his new life was already on hard mode. In another location, a refined woman holding a feather remarked that they had finally obtained an immortal being, confirming that the child was still alive, seemingly unsurprised by this incredible news. A mysterious woman holding a feather mused about the current events unfolding elsewhere, wondering what was happening. A friend chattered about Yamada planning to marry his girlfriend after graduation. The friend urged Yuma, now in his second year of university, to start thinking about his future. Yuma, however, remained indifferent, believing that whatever happened happened and that was good enough for him. A detached voice declared the situation marvelous. The voice continued, telling Yuma he should be proud. It was suggested he should feel pride in serving people in this way, as a knife was held to his neck. Yuma was trapped in an unending cycle of agony, his torment seemingly stretching into forever. Yuma jolted awake, coughing violently. The terrifying ordeal was momentarily dismissed as just a dream. He recalled fainting during the experiments again. Now awake in his cell, he knew the experiments would resume as soon as he woke up. He was exhausted by the relentless cycle, day in and day out, unsure how many days had passed. Startled by approaching footsteps, Yuma realized his captors were there. He briefly hoped it was just a patrol, but fear quickly overwhelmed him. Overcome with despair, he began to sob. In his despair, Yuma cried out for someone to save him. Suddenly, a glowing magic circle appeared beneath him. Yuma was stunned by the sudden appearance of the magic. His approaching captors were also caught by surprise. One of the captors heard a sound and opened the door. They rushed in, demanding to know where the subject was. Yuma, now in a new location, opened his eyes in shock. He found himself in a strange, vast chamber dominated by a colossal tree, wondering what this place could be. One of the young men declared checkmate. This marked his fifth win with no losses, much to his opponent's frustration. The victor found it amusing that this world had chess, while his opponent demanded another match. The winner noted his opponent also hated losing. A young woman entered, remarking on their continued energy despite just returning from the dungeons, and suggested they go to the cafeteria for dinner as it was getting late. The losing player eagerly agreed to eat, especially if meat was involved, suggesting they resume their game later. As they prepared to leave, the young woman noticed a group of men in the hallway. She asked if something was the matter. One of them quickly dismissed her concern, stating they were busy with a conference and that she shouldn't mind them. After the young woman wished them well for working so late, the man sternly instructed his subordinate that under no circumstances should the summoned ones know about their current situation. He then noted how troublesome this particular subject was, mentioning that the labyrinth was the only place left unsearched. He ordered some of his men to search the lower central levels of the labyrinth for the subject, while he would request aid from the priests. Meanwhile, Yuma, now in the labyrinth, felt too exhausted to move. He wondered why he was there. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. One of the pursuers appeared, surprised to find himself so deep within the labyrinth, a place he had only heard rumors about. The superior explained that this area was restricted to the priest class and above. One of the pursuers complained about their depth in the labyrinth, only to be reprimanded by his superior. They identified a trap set for intruders. However, the leader revealed an artifact that would prevent the trap from springing. Yuma watched them, realizing that without such an artifact, the only thing awaiting intruders in this part of the labyrinth was death. Suddenly, a trap activated with a violent impact. Yuma's head rolled across the floor. He was left bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Dark tendrils began to emanate from Yuma's severed parts. The tendrils rapidly reformed his body. Yuma struggled to his feet. He was horrified by what he had become, muttering that they must be kidding. To be like this, he thought, meant he was nothing but a monster. Standing alone in the vast, empty space, Yuma questioned why. He despaired, questioning why all of this was happening to him. Overcome with frustration, Yuma vowed to escape. He started running towards an exit. The guards shouted at him to stop and not leave his position. As Yuma fled, a gigantic monstrous hand suddenly slammed down from above, narrowly missing him. The pursuing guards were startled by the sudden appearance of the monstrous hand. One guard called the fleeing person a fool for rushing through the labyrinth, while another wondered what the attack was. They identified the attack as instant death magic placed by a magi against monsters, noting their artifact wouldn't help further. They wondered why the subject, Yuma, wasn't struck by the instant death magic, and decided to wait for the priests to arrive. Yuma continued through the labyrinth, finding the place increasingly strange and inconsistent the further he went. It reminded him of something he once saw on TV, and he called out to a figure he spotted, asking what they were doing. A voice responded from below, startling him and making him wonder who was there. Yuma peered down a hole, wondering if the voice came from there. A bandaged figure greeted him warmly from below. The figure introduced herself as Eva and asked for Yuma's name. Yuma observed the girl, noticing pipe-like things attached to her body, while she hesitantly introduced herself as Yuma. Startled, he asked if she too was being subjected to human experiments there. The girl confirmed it was something like that. Then, picking up on his wording, she questioned if he was also being forced to undergo experimentation. The girl, who Yuma would soon learn is named Eva, suggested he relax as people rarely came down to this area, an observation Yuma found unfortunately true. Eva then inquired how Yuma managed to get down there, noting he appeared to be alone. Yuma explained that he was essentially brought there by force. Yuma revealed that if he didn't possess the blessing of immortality, he would have perished multiple times by now. Eva was surprised to learn he was immortal, noting that he appeared no different from a regular human, a rare occurrence. She then understood that his immortality was the reason for the experiments he endured. Yuma observed that Eva seemed healthy, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she might also be in a dire situation. He began to suggest something, then awkwardly apologized to Eva, saying she seemed fine. Gathering his courage, Yuma impulsively asked Eva if she would run away with him. Yuma acknowledged his lack of fighting skills, but believed his immortality could be used effectively to navigate any traps. He felt he couldn't abandon Eva, a girl left alone in such a desolate place, and thought he could handle the traps. He passionately declared his desire for them to escape, breathe fresh air, and eat delicious food until they were full. Eva listened to his fervent proposal with a surprised expression. After Yuma's enthusiastic proposal, an awkward silence fell between them. He then sheepishly admitted that, in fact, he hadn't even stepped outside since arriving in this world. Eva suddenly called his name, startling him. She reminded him of his earlier claim that he would do something about the traps. Yuma, flustered, confirmed that if he went first, his immortality would allow him to handle them. Eva advised Yuma that if he wished to remain human, there was no need to become accustomed to pain or fear. Yuma was taken aback by her words, stammering in response. Eva then drew his attention to the pipes connected to her body, asking if he could see them, which he confirmed. Eva revealed that the pipes were constantly draining her blood. Yuma was shocked to hear her blood was being drained 24/7. She explained this was why she was always anemic and lacked the energy to move, finding it quite troublesome. She then proposed that if Yuma shared some of his blood with her, she could help with their escape. Eva assured him that despite her current appearance, she was actually quite strong. Realizing Eva was suffering a similar fate, Yuma readily agreed, telling her to take as much blood as she needed since he was immortal and would not die. With a knowing, sharp-toothed smile, Eva accepted his offer as a promise. Suddenly, Yuma was flung backward with a cry. He looked up to see something he perceived as a bat. Eva nonchalantly explained that the bat-like appendage was part of her, much to Yuma's surprise. The appendage then bit into Yuma's neck, drawing blood. With the new influx of blood, Eva wondered aloud if she could now remove the pipes restraining her. The pipes detached from Eva with a hissing sound. She remarked that it was no problem, though she mused she might have already used up the blood she received from Yuma. Yuma looked on, concerned by her statement. Eva, now enveloped in a powerful, shadowy aura, turned to him and declared she would fulfill her promise. Yuma stared in disbelief, exclaiming that she had to be kidding. Eva, now revealing her true vampiric nature, loomed over Yuma. She then solemnly swore on her name, Eva Scarlet, pure blood and true ancestor of Red, that she would set him free. Eva then bit into Yuma's neck. He reeled in shock, finally understanding that she was a vampire. As she drank, Eva seemed to savor his blood, remarking on its quality. Rejuvenated, Eva stretched, commenting on how long it had been since she fed directly and felt so light. She thanked Yuma with a kiss on the cheek, much to his surprise. Eva declared that since it was a special occasion, they should make a grand exit. She then suddenly swept Yuma into her arms, leaving him bewildered. Eva cryptically mentioned she had picked up something interesting. Large dark wings sprouted from Eva's back, startling Yuma. He cried out for her to wait as she prepared for takeoff. Eva mentioned a magi aura she had sensed from her room. With that, they soared into the air, beginning their escape. As they flew, Eva declared that the magi would be their first obstacle if they were to escape. She sensed a presence above them. Eva launched an attack upwards towards the unseen threat. However, it apparently missed its mark, as she nonchalantly remarked that it did not respond. A voice from below shouted, "You there," at Eva and Yuma. A furious man accused Eva, calling her a vile beast, of using Yuma's immortal blood to break free and ordered his men to prepare for battle. Eva seemed unimpressed, even as the command to fire was given, causing Yuma to panic that he was about to die. The enemy leader cursed as their mid-level magic proved ineffective against Eva, failing to even slow them down. Eva taunted them, suggesting they would need to use far more power if they hoped to land a shot on her, as she gathered energy for a powerful counterattack. The enemy leader watched in shock as Eva unleashed a devastating blast. The attack created a massive explosion. Yuma was horrified to see the attack had formed a large crater. With a smirk, Eva then proposed turning the entire place into a sea of fire, leaving Yuma utterly dumbfounded. Their pursuers watched from a distance as Eva and Yuma neared an exit. A spiky-haired youth noticed them, alarmed. His companion wondered aloud why a monster was so far out. Another in the group recognized Yuma, exclaiming that the monster was holding Mr. Kurizuka. The spiky-haired youth, Keita, wielding a spear, charged forward, demanding Eva release Yuma. Eva defiantly retorted, "Never," and prepared to engage him with her magic. Yuma desperately yelled for Eva to stop, trying to prevent the confrontation with Keita. However, Eva clashed with Keita, her magical defense meeting his attack. Keita was visibly shocked by the sheer force of her power. Keita's companions cried out his name as he was presumably overpowered by Eva's attack. Eva remarked that Yuma's attempt to stop her had given her quite a fright and asked if he knew Keita. Yuma explained they were summoned at the same time. Eva, accepting the situation, decided that their actions would at least slow down their pursuers for a while, though Yuma seemed uneasy about it. Perched atop a spire, Eva noted they had made it outside and asked Yuma what he wanted to do now. He expressed his desire to find a way to return to his own world. Eva found this goal both reassuring and a little unnerving, then declared herself his bodyguard. She reminded him of her vow to set him free, emphasizing the importance of promises to vampires, as Yuma felt like he was being held like a princess. Eva playfully added that she expected him to entertain her thoroughly. As they flew off, Yuma privately thought Eva was definitely missing the point of his desire to go home. Meanwhile, a head priestess summoned a cloaked figure. The head priestess assigned the figure a mission to recapture the immortal Yuma and return him from the vampire Eva. The cloaked figure was authorized to use a specific tool for this task. Yuma awoke with a start, disoriented, in an unfamiliar outdoor location. He then saw Eva bathing nearby. She greeted him, asking if he was finally awake, and casually offered him a bath. Overwhelmed, Yuma found the sight too much to process upon waking and wondered how a vampire could be out in the sunlight. Suddenly, a man appeared, offering Yuma some items and addressing him as master. Eva explained that the man was a traveling salesman she had mind-controlled into a slave, noting that mind control was a vampire's forte. She reassured Yuma that she wouldn't dream of making him her slave, as she was his bodyguard. Eva cheerfully announced they were heading to a nearby big town. Yuma was overjoyed at the prospect of food, and Eva urged him to eat up. When he inquired about Eva's sustenance, she mentioned she had already eaten while he slept, subtly alluding to his iron deficiency with a cough. Yuma asked if there was a way to earn money quickly, expressing his discomfort with relying on mind control. Eva confirmed there was a way to earn money quickly. She suggested they could hunt monsters and sell them to the guild, adding that to do so, they would first need to register as adventurers. This notion made Yuma reflect on the classic fantasy setting. As they walked, Yuma remarked that it seemed rather quiet and empty. Eva agreed, then suddenly told him to wait and leaped away. A moment later, a horde of monsters charged out of the forest towards Yuma. Yuma braced for impact, terrified by the approaching monsters. Eva swiftly reappeared, dispatching the monsters with ease. She then explained that the reason it had been so quiet was because all the creatures were fleeing from her. Surveying the defeated monsters, Yuma wondered how they would carry them all. Eva nonchalantly suggested he use his item box, which surprised Yuma as he hadn't known he possessed such a thing. Eva also mentioned he should have an appraisal skill, advising him to classify the monsters to make things easier later. He successfully stored a monster in his item box, marveling at the legendary ability. Yuma then sensed something peculiar nearby. One of the monster parts suddenly twitched, still alive, grossing Yuma out. It was then abruptly sucked into a dark portal. Yuma recognized this phenomenon from before, making him wonder if it was magic. Eva observed that the sun was setting and proposed they stay at a nearby friend's place, an offer Yuma accepted. They arrived at a decidedly spooky-looking haunted house, much to Yuma's apprehension. Eva remarked that the place was popular as always, though Yuma suspected she meant popular with the undead. An elderly man greeted Eva warmly. Eva inquired if they had a room available, to which he readily agreed. Inside, Yuma was terrified by the sight of various scary monsters roaming about. The old man bid them to make themselves at home. However, the room they were shown to was surprisingly gorgeous. Yuma noted that it was quite different from what he had expected, but perfectly fine by him. Yuma noticed there was only one bed in the room. Eva promptly claimed the coffin for herself, teasingly asking if he'd prefer they slept together, to which Yuma hastily declined. He felt a bit embarrassed, realizing that, as a vampire, a coffin was her natural sleeping place. Just then, a small, cute ghost materialized. The next morning arrived. Yuma awoke to find the little ghost resting on him, and Eva observed that the ghost seemed quite fond of him. Exhausted, Yuma grumbled that he hadn't gotten a wink of sleep. The ghost continued to follow Yuma, much to his dismay as he tried to shoo it away. He worried about registering as an adventurer with it tagging along. Eva offered him a spirit stone, explaining it could house spirits and that he could think of the ghost as a guardian spirit. Though skeptical, Yuma conceded that the ghost didn't seem dangerous and might be all right as a guardian spirit. At the guild, Yuma requested to register as an adventurer, and the receptionist began the appraisal process. He was relieved the ghost, now in the spirit stone, wasn't drawing attention. However, he and Eva were still garnering stares from everyone else. The appraisal completed, and he received his adventurer card, which identified him as Kurizuka Yuma, a human. Yuma was pleased that he could now earn money. The guild clerk explained that his adventurer card also served as personal identification, and advised him to keep it safe. Just then, a group of men approached, suggesting Eva ditch the weakling Yuma to party with them. Yuma panicked about Eva being hit on. Eva coolly rejected their advance, stating she was the devoted type, much to Yuma's blushing surprise. Eva, full of energy, declared it was time to go to the dungeons. Yuma, still sleepy, reluctantly agreed. He wanted to check Eva's stats with his appraisal skill first, and as they approached a dungeon entrance, they found monsters already swarming and attacking Eva. Using his appraisal skill, Yuma discovered a toggle for monster aggro in Eva's stats, which she had turned off, much to her surprise. Eva was thrilled that monsters were attacking her first and asked Yuma to collect all the drops, reminding him to stay hidden. As Yuma began collecting, the little ghost emerged, apparently offering to help. Yuma accepted the ghost's help gratefully. Yuma mused that with the money they could make, his problems might be solved, and that up until now, everything seemed like a dream. Though he didn't fully understand what was happening, at least he wasn't alone anymore. His thoughts were cut short as he was suddenly bound and gagged. Eva returned, calling out for Yuma, but found he was gone. A sudden sound and impact alerted her. She turned in shock to see a large, shadowy figure attacking the spot where Yuma had been. Eva deftly avoided the assailant's strike. Standing her ground, she declared she would only ask once, where was Yuma? The attacker, a cloaked figure, commended her terrific defenses and then revealed a restrained individual, tauntingly asking how she would handle this. Eva swiftly engaged what appeared to be multiple ghouls, noting that something was off about them. One of the ghouls then attacked her with holy magic, stunning Eva, who identified the markings on its arms. She couldn't believe an undead was wielding holy magic. Eva found herself caught in high-level restraints. From his bonds, Yuma watched in confusion, recognizing a search team from the church and wondering what was going on. The cloaked figure observed Eva's predicament with twisted amusement, finding her struggle stimulating. Realizing Eva was in serious trouble, Yuma desperately tried to free himself. Suddenly, Yuma's bonds vanished. He recognized this phenomenon from the previous day. Realizing it was all or nothing, he focused his power and launched a magical shield, desperately hoping it would reach Eva. The shield connected, dispelling the restraints holding her. Their enemy was surprised that the restraints were dispelled. Yuma managed to shield Eva from an incoming attack. He anxiously asked if she was all right. Eva confirmed she was, but explained that her magic power was currently unstable, preventing her from using magic effectively. Hearing this, Yuma declared he had an idea. Yuma quickly explained to Eva that he had an idea. Eva, surprised, questioned if that was his magic. He mentioned his ability to use an instant teleport-like skill and a barrier. Meanwhile, the cloaked figure, bewildered by Yuma's sudden reappearance elsewhere, wondered how he achieved it. The figure quickly dismissed the thought, ordering his ghouls to tear them apart. As the ghouls lunged forward, Yuma cried out. Eva noted that their enemies had come prepared with a magical barrier impervious to physical attacks. She realized it was clearly meant to prevent her escape. The spiky-haired ghoul then suggested using a particular item. The spiky-haired ghoul hurled a vial. Eva identified it as more high-level holy magic. Yuma, now carrying Eva, managed to erect a barrier just in time to deflect the dangerous attack. Yuma, still airborne with Eva, thought he could use another teleportation ability. He believed he could counterattack if he could fully utilize it. He admitted he was still unaccustomed to teleporting. He declared he needed time to concentrate. Eva, observing him, found his abilities truly interesting. Eva explained to Yuma that the magic he was using was ancient magic. She elaborated that unlike current-era magic requiring understanding, ancient magic relied on intuition and emotion. She had deduced this from the lack of symbols in his magic seals. She urged him to visualize his will. The ghoul lunged towards them. Yuma, channeling his will into his next action, cried out. Focusing his intent, Yuma powerfully declared that he did not want to be hurt. With a surge of power, Yuma successfully teleported the vial of holy magic directly into the attacking ghoul's hand, causing it to detonate against him. The ghoul reeled from the unexpected explosion. Yuma, relieved, exclaimed that he had done it. Eva looked on in amazement at Yuma's incredible feat. The ghoul stood stunned and smoking from the blast. Yuma wondered why the holy magic hadn't significantly harmed the ghoul. Eva began to realize the truth. The cloaked figure confirmed her realization, adding it was something extra, an undead who uses holy magic and is resistant to it. Eva, with dawning horror, identified the ghoul. She declared that the ghoul had committed a taboo. The cloaked figure began to speak. He admitted that he too was shocked by this development. The ghoul mentioned that the church had handed him something. The cloaked figure questioned if Yuma, the immortal kid, was ignorant about this world's magic. He explained that magic used by humans was merely borrowed from spirits or divine beings, originally held only by magical beings. Therefore, human magic was inferior to the power of true magical beings, even at the same level. This, he stated, was why the church created the ghoul. It was a monster loyal to humans, capable of wielding holy magic against its own kind. He then provocatively asked how they thought the church managed to create such an incredible ghoul. The cloaked figure chillingly revealed that from birth, children were used to create these ghouls. This revelation caused the spiky-haired ghoul's eyes to widen in horror. Yuma was utterly appalled by the revelation. He questioned how the man could speak so proudly of sacrificing children. The cloaked figure callously corrected him, stating they were not sacrificed but were orphans. The figure elaborated with a sinister smile that they had merely made use of them. He dismissed them as worthless lives that were thrown away. Yuma, looking at the man, realized that despite his human appearance, he was truly a monster. Eva declared that alchemy which distorts reason is a taboo. She had known the church would steal magic to create a chimera, but she questioned if this wasn't taking things too far. The cloaked figure, however, dismissed her concerns, calling her way of thinking archaic. Yuuma tried to speak to Eva. The cloaked figure interjected, stating they had talked long enough. He declared it was time to get back to business, and at his command the ghoul began to power up, its eyes glowing ominously. The ghoul unleashed a furious attack. It lunged towards Eva with immense power. The force of the ghoul's assault was tremendous, sending both Yuuma and Eva flying backward. Eva quickly retaliated, using her mind control ability on the ghoul. She enacted a force block, urgently telling Yuuma that her skill would only hold for a moment and that he needed to hurry. Yuuma affirmed he understood. Seizing the opportunity, Yuuma grabbed the momentarily stunned ghoul. The cloaked figure was taken aback. He demanded to know what Yuuma had done. With firm resolve, Yuuma declared that he was taking the child. Yuuma initiated a teleport, taking Eva and the ghoul with him, but not before leaving a small item behind as payment. The cloaked figure watched in disbelief, exclaiming that the ghoul's escape was impossible. A powerful explosion marked their departure point. As Yuuma, Eva, and the rescued ghoul walked away, Yuuma nonchalantly told the distant, enraged cloaked figure to keep the change. The figure, presumably named Levi by the cloaked man, was cursed as a filthy animal. Eva remarked that it was a shame about their first day at the dungeons. She acknowledged, as Yuuma carried the unconscious ghoul, that they did acquire some unexpected loot. She admitted her surprise when Yuuma decided to take the ghoul, but found the idea interesting and went along with it. She then asked Yuuma what he planned to do with the child. Suddenly, Yuuma collapsed to the ground. Eva, startled, called out his name in concern. Yuuma slowly awakens, a small sound escaping his lips. He finds himself in an unfamiliar room, wondering where he is. Eva enters the room with a tray, cheerfully greeting Yuuma and asking how he feels. Yuuma, sitting up, replies that he feels okay, though his memory is a bit foggy and he doesn't recognize the inn. He notices a pleasant smell, and Eva explains the master of the house prepared something for him. Eva reminds him that he fainted from exhaustion right after their dungeon encounter, even though he is immortal. Eva explains that physical fatigue is easily remedied with magic. However, she notes that mental fatigue is a different matter. She suddenly pulls back his covers, startling Yuuma. With a bright smile, Eva declares that a massage is the best remedy for mental fatigue. Yuuma panics, insisting he's fine and that a massage from her would make his mental fatigue worse. Eva tells him not to be like that. She then decides to head into town for a little shopping. Yuuma is surprised by her decision to go into town, especially after recent events. Yuuma voices his worry, pointing out that it might still be dangerous after their encounter the previous day. The master of the house appears and reassures Yuuma. He explains that the town's guild is surprisingly strong and incredibly strict about altercations within the walls, so there should be no problems. With that settled, Eva asks the little ghost to look after Yuuma while she is out. Yuuma watches through the window as Eva leaves. He turns his attention to the child they rescued the previous day, who is still asleep. Yuuma reflects that they brought the child back with them in the spur of the moment. Yuuma worries that as long as his companions are with him, they will be in danger because he is the target of their enemies. He wonders if it is all right to continue this way. The master of the house approaches, asking Master Yuuma if something is troubling him. Yuuma admits that he is indeed worried. Yuuma explains his concern that he will be pursued by the church, and while he is grateful to have Eva with him, he worries that she might get caught by them again because of her association with him. The master of the house assures him there is no need to worry. He explains that Ms. Eva has an incredibly cheery disposition, far more than they could imagine. Eva walks gracefully through the town market. A fruit vendor calls out to her, offering fresh fruits at a discount. Another vendor also tries to entice her with a discount on his morning harvest. Eva thanks a vendor and waves goodbye. Suddenly, she overhears something that startles her. A man exclaims about a pack of direwolves in the forest, numbering a few hundred, and orders all adventurers in the guild to assemble at once. Another adventurer relays that according to a witness, an incredibly large direwolf is leading the pack, though his companion questions this, stating all direwolves are large. An adventurer shouts an order for adventurers to fall in file. He then notices Eva walking towards the forest and warns her not to enter, stating it's dangerous. Eva calmly thanks him for his concern and proceeds towards the forest. The adventurer is shocked that Eva ignored his warning. Another adventurer tries to calm him, saying they aren't prepared enough to head in yet. The first adventurer, stressed, insists they have to go in soon. He then shouts for the other adventurers to gear up as the gate begins to close. Deep in the forest, a direwolf lets out a menacing growl. A group of terrified people are surrounded by direwolves, with a massive alpha wolf leading the pack. Suddenly, an unseen attack streaks through the forest. A young man desperately tries to fend off a direwolf's attack to protect a woman. The direwolf's powerful strike shatters his sword. The young man stares in horror at his broken sword. A mysterious glint appears in the darkness of the forest. A large, sharp leaf-like projectile pierces the direwolf's paw, pinning it. The young man, seeing their chance, yells for them to run. The two humans quickly escape as the other direwolves watch. The alpha direwolf sniffs the air, detecting a particular scent. It addresses Eva, who stands among the trees, calling her a little bat with guts for getting in its way. The direwolf proclaims that after 400 years, it has become the master of this forest. It then declares its intention to destroy the human settlements to further increase its power. The direwolf attacks, shouting at Eva not to interfere. Eva deftly dodges the direwolf's assault. She coolly remarks that a mere few hundred years is nothing, and that a young one such as the direwolf shouldn't be so rash. Eva explains that she has long been fond of the town that lies ahead. She adds that her companion is currently taking a rest in that town. The direwolf narrows its eye and asks, "So?" Eva transforms into a massive white wolf, questioning what business the direwolf claimed to have. The direwolf stares in disbelief, recognizing her wolf form as that of a 1,000-year-old pureblood. Eva approaches the town gate, observing that it's quite lively. She exclaims in feigned surprise. An adventurer, surprised to see her, asks if she just came from the forest, explaining he was worried because it's dangerous. Eva cheerfully tells him good work, saying it seems the wolves were just passing by. The adventurer looks puzzled, noticing a flower on Eva. Yuuma, observing the sleeping child, wonders if they will always be like this. He voices his concern that without a master, they might stay asleep forever, and if they don't eat, they could continue to decompose. The master of the house enters, addressing Yuuma. He comments that emotions are such that sometimes, before one knows it, they can become overbearing. The master of the house adds that sometimes being selfish is equally important. He then excuses himself, telling Yuuma to call if there is anything he needs. Yuuma sits alone, contemplating. A single white feather flower is shown, likely left by Eva. The master of the house, having just left Yuma's room, stops, noticing something on the floor. He picks up a white feather flower, recognizing it as most suitable for relieving fatigue and depression. He tries to recall its meaning in florography. The master of the house recalls that the white feather flower symbolizes a prayer for happiness. In the room, Yuuma, the child, and Eva sleep soundly, surrounded by these flowers, and the little ghost also wears a floral wreath. A group of adventurers found themselves in a desperate battle against a horde of undead creatures. One of the adventurers, a spiky-haired young man, cursed in frustration, exclaiming that they were just undead. The spiky-haired adventurer angrily told the undead not to push their luck as he slashed at them. His companions watched with concern. The female adventurer questioned their leader, reminding him this was supposed to be a simple scouting mission, while another noted that the undead just kept coming. Amidst the chaos and the circling crows, a formidable lich, cloaked and skeletal, emerged with its retinue of undead, its glowing eyes surveying the scene. A messenger crow landed on a windowsill, carrying a small scroll. An elderly man, Davis, retrieved the message, his expression turning grave as he read its contents. Davis murmured that he understood. Eva excitedly called out to Yuuma, showing off the rescued child, now cleaned and dressed in new clothes, asking if they looked good. Yuuma stared in utter shock at the sight. Yuuma cried out in alarm as the child's arm detached, questioning what the child was. Eva exclaimed in surprise as the arm fell off. Yuuma, flustered, pointed out that the arm wasn't regenerating like his own and wondered what they should do. Eva explained that the child's cells were already dead and couldn't be regenerated even with magic, to which the little ghost suggested just attaching a new arm. Just as they were attempting to bandage the child's arm back on, Davis peeked into the room, asking if it was a good time. Eva, visibly annoyed and flustered, retorted, asking if he couldn't see. She exclaimed that they were busy right now. Later, while having tea, Eva complimented Davis on his splendid tea, and Yuuma noted his name. Eva then asked Davis what he had come to report. Davis informed them that they had just received word of undead rampaging in the eastern mountains. He added it was confirmed that an incredibly powerful lich was at the center of it all. Yuuma mused that a lich, if he remembered correctly, was called the King of the Undead. Eva, addressing Davis, remarked that he always knew what she wanted and asked how powerful this lich was. Davis stated that judging by the miasma filling the forest and the number of undead under its control, there was no doubt it was a high-class lich. Eva casually mentioned that in that case they could override it, prompting Yuuma to ask what she meant. Eva clarified she was referring to the ghoul's control authority. Davis elaborated that the ghoul currently had no master, and if they didn't override its high-grade control magic, there would be no way to become its master. Yuuma acknowledged this with an IC. Yuuma, concerned, questioned if doing so wouldn't make the lich the ghoul's new master. Eva gave a knowing smirk and asked if he really thought she would let that happen. Eva explained that it was possible to transfer control authority, and that's why she would have the lich cooperate with them. She confidently stated that she would hold the control authority over the ghoul. She then provocatively asked what would happen if the lich were not to cooperate. Yuuma gulped nervously at her implication. As they prepared to depart, Davis handed Yuuma a letter of introduction for their informant. Davis cautioned him to take care due to many venomous insects in the eastern mountains, causing Yuuma to react with alarm. Eva, however, simply asked what he was talking about. She cheerfully announced they were flying there. While being carried by Eva in her winged form, Yuuma nervously noted that he could see their destination. Suddenly, Eva veered off course towards a dark forest. A startled Yuuma shouted after her. He asked where she was going. The little ghost zipped after Eva as she landed. Yuuma, still held by Eva, spotted a lone figure and stammered a greeting. He hesitantly asked if this person was the informant. The informant was revealed to be a spectral woman, with long dark hair obscuring her face and black tears streaming from her eyes. Yuuma gasped in terror at the sight. Eva casually identified the figure as a banshee and handed her the letter. Yuuma, meanwhile, had collapsed from shock. The banshee confirmed receipt of the letter. She stated she would make her report. The banshee began her report, explaining that there was a nest of undead currently in the forest where everything that lives rots and everything that rots lives. She added that humans had determined it to be dangerous, making it pointless to send adventurers. Even other undead found the situation harmful. She continued, stating that the more the miasma thickens, the more power the undead gain, but this also brings extreme pain. Consequently, the lower-grade undead running wild due to the miasma are in extreme pain. She then began a plea. The banshee implored them to save her and the others. However, Eva regretfully informed her that they were not there for them. Eva clarified that they were just there for the lich. Seeing Yuuma's concerned expression, she then added that because of this, they would do something about the miasma for the banshee and the others. The banshee then warned them that they could not see through the miasma from above and would have to walk. She wished them good luck as they departed. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Yuuma found it increasingly harder to breathe due to the pervasive miasma. Eva observed that the miasma was taking its toll on him. She reassured him that he wouldn't die, of course, but trailed off, hinting at another solution. Suddenly, Eva transformed. Yuuma was amazed by her wolf form. Eva appeared in her normal-sized wolf form. Eva, in her wolf form, told him to get on, as it would be much easier that way. Yuuma climbed onto Eva's back. He marveled at how soft her fur was. With Yuuma and the little ghost aboard, Eva declared that it was time to go meet the lich. Eva, in her wolf form and carrying Yuuma and the little ghost on her back, bounded swiftly through the dense, miasma-filled forest. Suddenly, Eva exclaimed that they had found their target. She expressed her frustration with the miasma that was irritating her nose. Yuuma, noticing her discomfort, turned to the little ghost, inquiring if it could lead them the rest of the way. He recalled that ghosts are naturally drawn to a lich's presence, and the little ghost seemed to agree. As they pressed on, guided by the little ghost, they encountered several ghouls lumbering through the trees. This prompted a worried Yuuma to ask Eva if the little ghost might also turn wild like these creatures under the miasma's influence. Eva reassured him, explaining that the little ghost was more akin to a sprite, and thus would not be affected by the miasma. Soon after, as they leaped over a rise, they approached their target in a clearing below. Eva announced that the lich was nearby. They arrived, and Eva boldly interrupted the lich, apologizing for the intrusion and asking for a word. The lich was surrounded by its ghoul minions. The lich, holding up a ghoul, identified her as a high-rank vampire. He curtly dismissed her, stating he had no time to deal with vampires. Eva simply remarked that it was a shame. Deciding that words were ineffective, Eva declared that if words would not work, they would try a little force. She launched an attack that sent a shockwave towards the lich and his ghouls. The lich, recognizing her power and the nature of her assault, identified her as an insatiable pureblood. Eva retorted that she really hated that name. The lich acknowledged her presence, stating it was an honor to be visited by someone like her, whom he had seen before. She asked if he felt like talking now. The lich, however, unfortunately declined. The lich elaborated that he had no interest in exchanging words with certain individuals. He specified those who, like Yuuma, had chosen the path of monsters themselves. Surprised by his statement, Eva reacted. She unfurled her wings, remarking on what a talkative skeleton he was. Eva then summoned her pets, commanding them to rise. Her bloody servants, powerful magical wolf-like creatures, materialized as she announced it was time for dinner. The bloody servants charged towards the Lich and his ghouls. The Lich's ghouls attempted to defend themselves. The bloody servants tore into them, overwhelming their numbers. Eva coolly observed that even bones turned to ash. She added with enough firepower as her magic intensified. The sheer force of the blast caught Yuma by surprise. A massive explosion culminated her attack, decimating the remaining ghouls. Yuma, having been thrown by the force of the blast, commented to Eva that her attack was a bit excessive. From the smoke and clearing debris, the Lich emerged, having used black magic death summoned to call forth a formidable undead dragon. The imposing undead dragon stood before them, its skeletal form towering over the Lich. Yuma was stunned at the sight of a dragon. Eva, unimpressed, remarked that it was a nice little piece he had summoned. He was momentarily speechless. Realizing the grave danger, Yuma exclaimed that this was definitely not good. Eva quickly erected a magical barrier to protect them. The undead dragon gathered energy and unleashed a powerful blast from its maw. The dragon's devastating attack slammed into the barrier, causing a massive impact that kicked up dust and debris. Eva praised Yuma, presumably for his contribution to the barrier. Determined, Yuma declared that he didn't want to always be the one relying on people, and that if there was something he could do, he wanted to do it. Yuma and Eva then launched a coordinated assault of ancient magic, their attacks streaking towards the airborne undead dragon. The Lich, observing the battle, noted that the vampire Eva had an annoying little sidekick who also wielded ancient magic. The Lich decided he would take care of Yuma first. Seeing the Lich turn his attention towards her companion, Eva taunted him, asking if he was finally joining in the game. The Lich seemed to notice his undead dragon stirring, remarking that it was finally awake. Eva, seizing the momentary distraction as the Lich looked towards his summon, questioned if he really thought he should turn his back on her. Eva lunged at the Lich, their attacks clashing. Just then, the undead dragon attacked Eva from behind with a powerful roar. She deftly evaded its strike, taunting the little lizard that its attack was not strong enough. Suddenly, the undead dragon broke off its attack and flew away into the forest. Eva was visibly surprised by this development, exclaiming in confusion. She asked where it was going. Yuma, seeing Eva prepare to give chase, called out for her to wait up. Yuma tripped in the dense undergrowth, crying out in pain. As he struggled to keep up with Eva, he was startled by a large spider. Losing sight of Eva, he called out her name, asking where she had gone. Noticing the little ghost nearby, he then asked if it would show him the way. The little ghost led Yuma to the edge of a vast, dark chasm in the earth, prompting him to question what on earth it was. He admitted he was tempted to look down the hole, but confessed that it was far too scary. As he hesitated at the chasm's edge, Yuma felt a sudden chill, remarking that it was getting pretty chilly. He noted that he was starting to get goosebumps. He looked around, questioning what was happening. A colossal, grotesque monster with large, dark eyes and sharp teeth began to emerge from the depths of the chasm, its terrifying form looming over the forest. Yuma looked up in utter terror at the sight. A giant, grotesque baby zombie emerged from the chasm, towering over the landscape. Yuma, shocked and terrified, identified the monstrous creature as a giant baby zombie. Eva flew in, agitated, asking Yuma where that bag of bones, the Lich, had disappeared to. Yuma, still shaken and looking as white as a ghost, pointed out that she was the one who had left him. Eva turned her attention to the giant zombie, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. She deduced that this creature, with its jumbled mess of unique auras, was undoubtedly the source of the miasma plaguing the forest. Yuma, bewildered, asked Eva why the Lich would create something so huge. Eva explained she could think of several reasons, suggesting that with its influence over the undead, the Lich could easily take over 1 or 2 towns. Yuma uttered an exclamation of disbelief at the implications. Eva noted "Speak of the devil" as the Lich materialized before them. The Lich addressed them, stating they were a nuisance. Yuma angrily questioned the Lich's motives for creating such a thing and what he hoped to achieve. The Lich calmly informed Yuma that he seemed to be mistaken. The Lich clarified that the giant creature was not something he had created. As the Lich began to state the reason he was there, numerous smaller, vaguely humanoid figures started to rise from the earth. These emerging figures appeared to be incomplete or partially formed zombies. The Lich declared his purpose was to seal the creature away, and a vast, complex magic circle materialized. Yuma, astounded, exclaimed at the sight of the huge magic seal. The giant baby zombie reacted as the seal took effect, surrounded by powerful energy. Yuma let out a cry of surprise as Eva observed, understanding dawning on her. Dark, swirling energy enveloped the creature as the sealing process continued. The dissolving form of the giant zombie revealed several children huddled within. Yuma, horrified, wondered aloud if there were children inside the zombie. The lich stood before the group of children, a gentle energy emanating from him and enveloping them. Yuma observed the lich's actions with focused intensity. The lich's staff glowed, channeling the energy that surrounded the children. The lich reflected on the strange, bittersweet feeling washing over him, describing it as somewhat nice yet also sad. Yuma and the little ghost watched the lich, a somber expression on Yuma's face. The lich told the children that they might find eternal rest within him. As the lich started to walk away, Yuma urgently called for him to wait. Yuma approached the lich, stating that he had a request for him. Yuma explained the situation. A child turned into a ghoul by the church, currently without a master and thus destined to rot. The lich tightened his grip on his staff, listening intently. Yuma implored the lich to use his power to overwrite the ghoul's control authority. The lich turned, his gaze fixed on Yuma, and questioned the truth of his statement. The lich issued a grave warning. If Yuma was deceiving him, there would be severe consequences. Yuma appeared nervous but resolute under the lich's intense stare. Yuma nervously confirmed his statement. He then firmly reiterated that it was true. Eva and the little ghost watched the interaction with interest. The lich, accepting Yuma's plea, told him to lead the way. The scene shifted to a seemingly peaceful town with a prominent church. Townsfolk were seen enjoying a moment of normalcy. A shadowy figure observing the town remarked that things were proceeding smoothly. Mr. Priest, the observer, was told by an unseen subordinate that he understood and would wait for the signal. A man and his young daughter approached Mr. Priest, addressing him respectfully. The man expressed immense gratitude, explaining that thanks to Mr. Priest's medicine, his daughter and the rest of the townspeople had fully recovered. Mr. Priest replied that he was glad to hear it. An unseen person shouted a warning for people to watch out. A large, spiky monster burst forth, attacking the unsuspecting civilians, including Mr. Priest and the family. A young man, one of the heroes, commented that it had been a close call. He then urged the civilians to evacuate to the shelter as it was dangerous there, while a female companion announced she had finished purifying the toxins. The hero then expressed his disappointment, finding the encounter rather boring. The hero stood triumphantly over the defeated monster, dismissing it as mere small fry, not even a warm-up, while Mr. Priest lauded their heroic capabilities. Mr. Priest praised the heroes, noting their remarkable progress and swift defeat of the monsters that had occupied the town. The lead hero humbly replied that it was nothing at all. Mr. Priest then shifted the topic, apologizing for bringing it up after their battle, but he had word for them. Mr. Priest announced to the heroes that they had found where Mr. Yuma was being held. The female hero asked if it was true, and Mr. Priest confirmed that luckily Yuma appeared to be unharmed. She expressed her immense relief, thanking God. However, Mr. Priest added that their sources indicated Yuma was still under the control of a terrible vampire, causing the female hero to react with alarm. The hero grimly acknowledged that this must be the one who took Yuma that day. Mr. Priest explained that the vampire, depicted as Eva brainwashing someone, possessed incredible fighting skills and the ability to brainwash others. This meant, he continued, that rescuing Mr. Yuma might prove rather difficult. Mr. Priest began to suggest providing reinforcements. However, the hero forcefully interjected, declaring they needed no reinforcements. The hero, weapon in hand, proclaimed that the vampire was his responsibility. He angrily vowed that he was going to make her pay back for that time. The hero confidently told his companions that it was time to go. Meanwhile, Yuma, accompanied by the little ghost, looked on with a worried expression. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as they stood before the ghoul child, Yuma looking particularly nervous. Yuma wondered about the tense silence. The lich explained that this was the ghoul for whom they needed to overwrite the control authority. Yuma watched, taken aback by the lich's display of emotion. Overcome with emotion, the lich knelt before the child. He confessed that the child's current state was his fault and begged for forgiveness. The instructor reflected on how he and this child had met. In his past life as an instructor, an assistant brought him reference materials. He remembered meeting the child when he was once a servant of the nation, instructing his assistant to leave the materials. The instructor asked what the assistant wanted, who replied he was merely honored to be of use. The assistant continued to praise the instructor for his tireless work, but the instructor cut him off, asking him to quit the flattery. Despite the assistant calling him the nation's treasure, the instructor found it exhausting. The assistant understood and said he would be in the research study. Passers-by recognized him as the famous and handsome magical arts instructor. They also noted his reputation for being unsociable and rejecting all apprentice applications, considering it part of his lone wolf appeal. His attention was then caught by a small child sitting alone. The instructor approached the child, asking what he was doing. The child looked up, startled. Observing the child's attire, he deduced he was an orphan recently taken in by the church. He then noticed the child seemed concerned about a nearby wilted flower. With a gentle gesture, the instructor focused on the wilted flower. Magic flowed and the flower was revived, standing tall once more. He reassured the astonished child that it was now all better. The child beamed and thanked him gratefully. The instructor gently patted the child's head. Other curious children observed the interaction. Soon, they all gathered around the instructor. A few days later, something caught the instructor's attention. He noticed a lantern light near what he knew to be an unused warehouse. He approached the warehouse cautiously. He peered inside to investigate the suspicious activity. Inside, he was horrified to see a child, appearing to be the same orphan he had helped, restrained and surrounded by masked figures. The instructor uttered in disbelief at what he was witnessing. One of the figures, recognizing him, expressed surprise at his presence. The figure, who seemed to be his former assistant, apologized to the instructor. He explained they had wanted the instructor to work with them longer, and that it was his research that had made their current operation possible. Suddenly, the instructor was caught in a magical attack, crying out in pain as his assistant coldly remarked on his good work. He collapsed from the assault. The assistant stated they would leave before he regained consciousness. The instructor, falling, reflected on how he had worked tirelessly for the nation's peace. Betrayed and wounded, the instructor's hand dripped with blood as he whispered his resolve. With tears of rage, he vowed that he would never forgive them. Enraged, the instructor unleashed a massive explosion that tore through the facility. Onlookers were shocked by the destruction of the facility. He declared that all of it should turn to ash. He fought back furiously against his assailants. However, he was eventually struck down. Robed figures watched as he was defeated. He was then cast into a deep pit. One of the robed figures mockingly told him that the pit was almost full. The instructor lay defeated in a pit filled with numerous spherical objects. He desperately questioned why this had happened. His resolve never to forgive them hardened. And so time passed. Fueled by his immense mana and an undying grudge, his physical form began to change. He was reborn, transformed into a lich. The lich reflected on the fate of those children. He realized they had awakened in a monstrous state due to his powerful grudge. He then used his powers to grant them all eternal rest. Returning to the present, the lich informed the ghoul child that it was his turn for the ritual. A magical process began on the child's forehead. Eva announced that the override of the control authority was completed, and Yuma expressed his profound gratitude to the lich. Eva then requested the lich transfer the control authority to her, stating they would be done then. Yuma, meanwhile, asked Eva if she had considered what they would feed the child. He stated his preparedness to become immortal if it meant no one else had to be sacrificed. Eva was impressed by his dedication to the child, who was originally sent to assassinate him. Eva admitted she was also intrigued by the situation. Yuma confessed he couldn't live with himself if he abandoned the child. Eva acknowledged this, recalling his similar compassion towards her. She then pressed the lich again about handing over the control authority. The lich flatly refused. Yuma and Eva were shocked by his refusal. He declared he would retain the authority. Furthermore, he demanded that they hand over Yuma, the immortal. At that